Hello, devoted listeners. This is Calvin here. I just wanted to stop in to say that I apologize if the quality of this episode is not up to our usual standards. I had some issues with my microphone, and then we had some issues on the Skype call with Eric and Nick later in the episode, but this is not indicative of our normal quality. Next week we will be back to normal. I assure you of that. Enjoy the show all about Spider-Man movies. Here we go. Hello and welcome to a podcast about something where each week we dive deep into whatever it is we find interesting. I am your host, Kalvin, and joining me, swinging through the skyscrapers of New York City, it's Nick the Spider Richardson. The human spider. Nick the human spider Richardson.
The human spider. No, that sucks. I can tell you, it's a breezy day in New York City. Brooklyn.
He's from Queens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I fucked that up. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Anyway, we're talking Spider-Man. Today, we're doing Spider-Man movie superlatives. So the rules, again, is we can only give, if this is your first movie superlatives, we've done one every month for the past, 8 months. So you should really get on the train here. Yeah. We give one award per movie and one movie per award. No repeats or redoozies. Also, at the end of this episode, the last half hour will be a Far From Home spoiler-filled review. So if you haven't seen Far From Home or Avengers Endgame, cut it off before you hear that part. Eric comes in and joins us for that, and we do a little three-way on the Spider-Man Far From Home film. But we will not be giving any awards to Far From Home here, and we will not be discussing Far From Home at all until the last half hour.
Exactly.
Does that cover everything?
That covers everything.
Okay, so Spider-Man movies. Has to be a movie. No cartoons, no TV shows, anything like that. Spider-Man has to be in the movie. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
and I mean, he's had 12 movies now, so we're good.
Maybe a little high on that estimate, but
I may be a little high on that estimate.
The awards we are giving are Best Costume, Best Love Interest, Best Villain, Best Origin for a Hero or Villain, and Best Peter Parker.
Yes, very good choices.
Yeah, and we got some Twitter feedback on the Best Peter Parker, so we will get to that when we are there. So that is the last thing we will be doing. So if you're waiting for your shout-out, you're going to have to wait a little longer.
It's just a little bit longer. Poor guys and gals.
So let's start it off. Best Costume. You go first.
All right, dude. Hands down, I've always thought, as soon as I saw it, this is what I thought. The Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, I don't think it really changed to the second one, is absolutely dude, that is the best Spider-Man costume. It felt so arachnid. It was just that it was colorful.
Really long legs.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he's kind of a long, lanky cat, and it was really colorful, and just the bug eyes and the way the color scheme worked together.
The sunglasses eyes that he did. Well, and then I liked, he had the sneaker shoes too.
Yeah.
Which is something like you need if you're running around New York City that much.
Oh, fuck yeah, man.
Gotta
and you're
have
going off
shoes.
Skyscrapers and you're just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And it just really reminded me of John Romita Jr.'s art. I loved every time I saw a cover he's done or, just art he's done. I'm all about it. That's a fantastic interpretation of Spider-Man, and it gets it so right.
Really good costume. It was my pick until I went back through about 3 hours ago, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't give Spider-Verse any awards.
What?
Yeah. Huge. I overlooked it hugely. I'm sorry about that, Into the Spider-Verse, because it's a fantastic movie. So I remedied that. And I go with Spider-Gwen from Into the Spider-Verse.
Really?
Yes. I really like the white, purple, teal, black combo that she has. Plus she's got the hoodie and the ballet shoes that really, it builds her character without having to actually build her character. Just by seeing the costume she wears, okay, she has this hood on. She's kind of a loner and doesn't always relate well to people. She's wearing the ballet shoes, so obviously she has some ballet dancing in her background. So by including those types of things, you get a sense for who she is without being able to give her, because there's 8 different Spider-Men in that movie. You can't give them all enough screen time to really, build their characters. They can do this through her costume, especially.
Yeah, you make a really good point. Her costume is pretty dope.
And so Spider-Gwen is one of the only comics / superhero characters that my 4-year-old daughter will indulge in with me. She loves Spider-Gwen. She'll watch Into the Spider-Verse with me just because of Spider-Gwen. And to me, that's why it's important that women and people of color and everything else on the spectrum is represented, because like if Spider-Gwen didn't exist, my daughter wouldn't care about anything related to any superheroes or anything. Like she just doesn't give a shit. And I get that now, because trust me, I've tried to push everything on her. Nothing catches, but this caught. She likes the costume. She likes how she talks. She likes her hair. Like it, and it's not for like just because we raised her this way. Like something about that, just she saw herself in it and it caught her and she loves it. And hey, so man, like it's really important that every type of person is represented, because you don't know who's going to cling to that.
I totally agree. And comics is a perfect medium for that.
Mm-hmm. And this movie was also. I mean, Absolutely. Even if you're a pig, you've got a superhero to look up to from Into the Spider-Verse.
Fuck yeah. All the incels out there are going to be like, fuck you, man, I'm not a pig.
That is not... I meant literal pigs.
Yeah, they did too.
All right, so best love interest. I'm going to go back to back here. I picked Gwen Stacy from Amazing Spider-Man 2. So 2 Gwen picks in a row.
Really, man? That's kind of a fascinating pick, actually.
Emma Stone's a fantastic Gwen.
She is a great Gwen. I just thought, I don't know, Andrew Garfield is just, he wasn't my favorite, is it?
Yeah, but this category isn't about who the Peter Parker or the Spider-Man is. It's about the love interest.
Well, the love interest coincides with Peter Parker, though.
It does, but I just liked that after seeing the Raimi films, they didn't go right back into MJ. They went with Gwen, and then now they've done it with the MCU because they used Gwen for 2 movies. Now they're switching back to MJ. So like, instead of just like hammering home one character, like we got to see a different character, and that was really cool. Especially because Shailene Woodley was set to play MJ, and I hate Shailene Woodley so much. She is fucking terrible. So I'm glad that never actually occurred.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Gwen Stacy is a huge part of Peter Parker, Spider-Man's life. Yes. I mean, the death of Gwen Stacy is incredibly touching, is a good way to say it, I think.
So I've talked about this before, but I'm reading through the Amazing Spider-Man comics in chronological order, and I'm finally past the death of Gwen Stacy, but like when I got to it, because I knew what issue it was, I just stopped reading. Like I couldn't do it. I couldn't read that issue. I was like, I don't want to see it happen. I know it's going to happen. I don't want to see it happen. So like I just stopped reading the Spider-Man comics for a while. I eventually picked back up and got into it, but in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, they did a good job of framing them as like closer to rom-coms than straight action movies.
Yeah.
Or like superhero movies. Like it was more about the relationship between Peter and Gwen than it was about Spider-Maning sometimes. And it made her death more impactful that they relied so heavily on building her character up in these 2 movies and building that relationship up. Because if it was just like, I think if Mary Jane in the Raimi trilogy would have died in the second movie, like I would have just been like, okay, fine, he's going to move on now. But like it really felt like it had impact in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and it really felt like it would be hard for this Peter Parker to move on.
Well, with this one, it's just, I mean, he does always. He moves on to MJ, but I feel like if you're looking at the MJ character instead of Gwen, I don't know, you always have Gwen in the back of your mind. When I was watching that, it's just like, okay, if she dies, then they're going to move on to the Gwen storyline. So, I don't know, it's just a weird natural progression type thing in my head that bugs me about it.
I don't know. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not a very good movie. It's a mess. No. I really like both the Amazing Spider-Man movies because, again, it's Spider-Man content, so I'm there for it.
Fuck yeah, man.
I liked Garfield. I liked Emma Stone. I liked Dane DeHaan as Green Goblin. I was really excited to see Paul Giamatti as Rhino. I didn't like the Green Goblin. I liked Dane DeHaan as Harry Osborn. Let's say that. The
Yeah,
goblin was really weird.
it was, man.
And
They took it too far.
part two got really, really messy, and they tried to shove a lot of stuff in there, and it really got too full for itself really quickly.
Well, they had too much seriousness and too much camp, all crammed. Like
And then
Electro was so campy.
but part two teased the Sinister Six. It teased
Yeah.
Felicia Hardy. It teased Alistair Smythe. Like so many things that were just like kind of there, but not actually there. And it teased Peter's parents. And what happens after Gwen's death. I was really interested to kind of see where those things went. But at the same time, they made such a mess of it that I can't blame them for just being like, all right, no, we got to scrap this and start over, because they were trying to set up some cool things with Peter's parents and them being spies. That's something they do in the comics. It's something they do in the old animated show. It would have been interesting to see how he really responds after Gwen's death. Yeah, they showed that one scene of him facing Rhino again, but that wasn't really anything. And I would have liked to see the Sinister Six, but at the same time, it was way too much of a mess to continue.
Yeah, Sony is bad at making Spider-Man make sense.
I felt really bad when Gwen died. As much of a mess as that movie was, I felt Gwen dying, and like it hurt to watch.
It sucked. It was. I mean, when she smacked her head off, it was just like, damn. It's that close.
Yeah, anybody with any knowledge of the Spider-Man comics knows that that's what happens when as soon as she starts falling, you know what's about to happen, and you know there's going to be that little snap at the end, which like in the comic, the frame is, Peter catching her and just a little tiny text of snap right underneath her back. And like, you don't know if it's just because he caught her or what. And it's, he snaps her neck by catching her because she was moving too fast. And like you feel that in the movie too, as much of a mess as it was. And I that's why I picked Amazing Spider-Man 2 over Amazing Spider-Man 1, because I thought they built the relationship a little bit better. And because if you introduce Gwen, she has to die. And they did. I'll give them credit that they did that. It would have been very easy for them to be like, no, Emma Stone's a superstar. We can't kill her off. We're just going to keep going. It doesn't matter that she died in the comics. But they took it and they killed her, which you have to do if you're going to use her as the main love interest.
Yeah, I agree completely. But that was the moment, and they displayed it so well in that movie, where Spider-Man Peter Parker realizes that this superhero gig isn't just his life, but it's it's a game of inches. This shit is serious as fuck. And I think you see a different Spider-Man from there on out. And he grows up a lot in that moment.
Absolutely, he does. And it's really cool to see that progress.
Yeah, they did it so well on the big screen, which was great. I mean, they could have flubbed that so fucking hard.
Mm-hmm. But they didn't. Good job.
Good job.
You got something right.
Thank God, Sony. Booty ass. Booty.
All right, so best love interest, who you got?
I'm going to be short and sweet. Mary Jane from the first Spider-Man movie. Reason being is you could feel like that tension in the air between the two. And when I go back and rewatch
Is she really love interest in the first one, though?
Dude, he's fucking obsessed with her. He wants to buy a car just so he can impress her.
I guess it's a love interest, not necessarily a love fulfillment.
Yeah, I mean, there's hopes and dreams, and then there's reality.
Yeah.
But he's living in hopes and dreams world. And I still when they talk and stuff like that, I just think there's something there, and you can tell. And they just did such a great job. And I think she was Kirsten Dunst. Is that her fucking name?
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've thought about her. But yeah, I thought she was a great Mary Jane Watson.
She did pretty good.
She did awesome, man. And I think she just personified the character really well, especially from, the series I grew up reading and watching and stuff like that. Busty redhead. Okay, there she is. Boom. Let's go. And then she had some acting chops behind her too, kind of like the whole Emma Stone thing. So I don't know. I think we saw her indestructibility in the movie scene, but I thought she was a great love interest for Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker.
Yeah, she was very indestructible in these movies. That's for sure.
Which is sad, because I think you gain a lot if you're willing to take out those big time characters. Like we saw how, for instance, Game of Thrones. We saw how when they stopped killing people, like the main characters who logically dictated.
main characters just had so much plot armor that there were no stakes for anything.
Yeah, it got boring.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my pick. MJ
That's
from the first Spider-Man.
That's a good pick. Best villain. You go first here.
I'm going to go back to old Raimi trilogy, and I'm going to say Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2.
That's a good choice.
Dude, love that. He's such a great villain, and I don't know that guy's name, but...
Alfred Molina.
Yeah, either way, anytime I think of Doc Ock from now on, I think of his face.
Yeah,
he personified that character so well.
Seeing Doc Ock in other places, and like if you read the older comics, he's like so campy, and it's like, well, that's not Alfred Molina, or like in the cartoons and the old video games, it's like, it's just like Alfred Molina did such a good job that sums up what Doc Ock will forever be, I think, to anyone who grew up during that time.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was brilliant, sinister, and just I loved the way they did the arms. I thought for that time period, it was a great job, and just I mean, he was the perfect actor for the role. And
he got the whole the villain is the hero of their own story type thing. You know, he's trying to save the world by creating this fusion reactor, and kind of goes crazy in trying to do it, and
I mean,
his
wife dies, and
yeah,
he just has a bad deal. And he redeems himself in the end. But I guess anti-hero is a good sort of anti-hero in that movie. But I was really surprised with how well they did. I mean, Doc Ock is just a dude, but the way he whooped Spider-Man's ass on that train, and just all the fight scenes they had, so well done. And I think a brilliant tactician like Otto Octavius, and just a brilliant man, would be one of the biggest threats to Peter Parker, unlike some of the other
Peter
villains
Parker looks up to him.
Oh yeah,
like,
he absolutely loves the guy.
He doesn't want to hurt him because he knows he's a brilliant scientist, and like if he can kind of bring him back down to earth instead of letting him die, then that's what he's going to want to do. So he can't, and that's the thing that happens in the comics a lot is, that most of Spider-Man's villains are connected to him in some way. Yeah. And so he doesn't want to just like outright beat the shit out of them, send them to jail. Like he wants to try and rehabilitate them a little bit to get them back to where they are. You look at the Lizard or Green Goblin or, Doc Ock. I'm sure there's some other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head, but like he does this to try and help them. And he has to pull his punches and not always use his full strength against some of these guys because
they'd explode.
They people around them need them.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it adds another dynamic that Peter knows it's Doc Ock, but Doc Ock doesn't know it's Peter.
Right. Not to the very end, yeah.
Yeah. Which I think is, another dynamic to look at.
Right. And I kind of went down the same path with my pick. I chose Green Goblin from the first Spider-Man. Willem Dafoe nailed the kind of manic genius behind Norman Osborn. I almost called him Harry. I think Willem Dafoe would make a good Joker too.
Yes, dude.
He's already got the smile.
Yeah, and he's got that cackle. And he's weird. The eyebrow arches and just the face, man. He's got the perfect face for it.
He definitely could be a Joker. The suit looks really bad in 2019. Like the suit's bad. It was kind of cool in 2001, but compared to like the original concept arts, it's loads better than that.
Yeah, it looks like a Halloween costume, like a cheap Halloween costume.
But again, it's in this version of the story, Norman Osborn's a weapons manufacturer, so it's made as a suit of like an exoskeleton suit of armor for military. So like I get where he's coming from. It's just the face with no facial features looks really weird and like kind of over the top. But kind of like I said on your point, Spider-Man's best villains have this personal connection to him. It separates him from other characters like Batman or Iron Man or anything like that because Peter personally knows most of his villains. He knows what's at stake when he's fighting them.
Well, he knows they're people.
He knows if he kills Norman Osborn, then his best friend Harry has to grow up without a dad.
Yeah.
He knows if he kills Otto Octavius or Dr. Connors, there's these great scientists are just gone from the world. Dr. Connors was his teacher. Like he doesn't want to lose his teacher. The same with the Jackal in the comics. That he's creating clones of everybody, but he's his teacher. He don't want to hurt them.
Well, I mean, there are people he cares about, and if he's not Spider-Man, care about him.
Yeah,
Which
and
is,
this movie and Spider-Man 2 got that better than anything. Spider-Man 3 really tried to shoehorn in a personal connection,
yeah,
but
that made zero fucking sense.
the first two, and Green Goblin always throughout Spider-Man's history has always hit this point better than anything else, and this movie got it, and so did Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, yeah. The Spider-Man 3 tried to shoehorn 2 in there. He's just like, good God,
Yeah.
give it up.
It's
3,
kind of
I
free
guess.
because you had New Goblin
Harry.
too.
Yeah.
But it did, plus this gave birth to the sky surfing New Goblin in part 3, which the sky surfing is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty dope. I like the gadgets. Samurai sword.
Yeah. Like, everything about New Goblin was cool, except, like, New Goblin was really stupid.
Yeah, no shit.
All right, best origin for a hero or villain. I go first on this one. I picked Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, mostly because of the things you've already said here.
Good pick, dude.
He was trying to create sustainable energy for the world and never gave up on that pursuit. Sure, he let his arms take control of him somehow. He had the inhibitor
neurological connection.
Yeah, the inhibitor chip failed, and the AI in the arms, took control. Which, I mean, this is what everyone warns you about when going too deep with AI, and that's we learned it back in 2004.
Yeah, it was a good cautionary tale.
We're still making Terminator movies somehow.
Yeah, I saw that preview. And
but yeah, Doc Ock, just really great of him coming about, him helping Peter along through a scientific journey. He calls Peter brilliant but lazy, and he's there for Peter again as this father figure. I keep saying again because of the conversation we already had about Far From Home. That's at the end of this. But Doc Ock takes on this kind of father figure, science tutor to Peter before turning evil, and now he has to face now Peter has to face this mentor.
Yeah, which is a hard thing to do, man. Especially a guy that grew up without a dad for the most part. His uncle was killed, so he naturally goes to someone he looks up to, and that's Doc Ock.
Exactly. Best origin, hero or villain? Who you got?
Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse.
That's great.
I thought his little origin story was so well played out. It didn't feel... Well, since he's a relatively new character, I mean, I read him in the comic books when Brian Michael Bendis came out with that Ultimate Spider-Man. And
there's still a lot of people that have no idea who he is, though, before.
Which is crazy. Which, shout out Brian Michael Bendis. The end of the original run of Ultimate Spider-Man was so heartbreaking, and he comes out with this new Spider-Man, and it's just like, I don't know. You just killed Spider-Man. You killed Peter Parker, and he nails it.
I remember a lot of people
absolutely.
had problems with it when it first happened.
I didn't know how I was going to feel, and he did such a great job, and they did it even better in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Miles Morales is fully developed by the end of that movie, or at least you know what you need to know about the character. They go through all the motions, they retell it in a way that feels fresh and fascinating, and it really benefits it.
Yeah, that was my second choice of how to fit Spider-Verse into here. I was going to do basically all of the Spider origins from that because of the way they did them. The way they presented them was really cool of like, okay, we all know this story, but we're going to tell it really quickly in this fun way. And I like that.
Yep. We'll just run it down real quick because people don't know who those characters are.
And we're going to do it 8 times. Yeah.
Yeah. They'll get a name at least, and that's good enough.
And with Miles, they did such a good job of framing Miles with his music, and just like that, the scene where he's about to go into the collider for the last time, like he gets the suit from the original Spider-Man's shed or whatever, and he spray paints it and everything like that. He's sitting on top of the building, and then he does the dive up because the way they framed it, they flipped it upside down, so he's actually rising rather than falling, but in real life he's falling. The way they surround, I think the song's What's Up Danger, and the way they surround him with music throughout the movie is really great, and then that song is perfect in that moment of like him rising / falling into becoming Spider-Man.
Yeah, they had a lot of really great shots in that movie, and it took me way too long to see it.
Yeah, it did. I kept asking you for like 3 months after it originally came out, and you didn't see it till it came out on DVD, and I was like, all right, you're useless to me.
You're a bitch, is what you were thinking. It's
yeah,
okay.
I don't think I ever said it though.
Yeah, you didn't, because you're just such a nice guy. But
that's me. That's what everyone says about me.
That's what I say about you, Calvin. That's all that matters, bro.
That's nice.
No, but for real though, I took way too long to watch that movie.
You did.
Shit happens, man. Shit happens.
Such a good movie.
Still haven't seen Captain Marvel.
That's okay. That one's not as great. It's fine. At least you thought to include it in your awards. Probably the best Spider-Man movie you actually remembered to put into your awards. I forgot until 3 hours ago. So you got that over me.
It's a very good Spider-Man movie. It's a very good Spider-Man. I will say, the first time I saw The Amazing Spider-Man, I could not shut up about it for like
I really liked it.
I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. At least comic book movie wise. But after seeing it a couple times, it really just didn't.
It doesn't hold up great, but it's still watchable. Like I still like watching both of those movies.
I got it on Blu-ray.
If I can turn my brain off for the silly stuff in number 2 to just enjoy the good parts of them.
Yeah, I mean they did such a good job with his swinging action and his kung fu, his spider fu, I like to call it. But anyways,
plus he goes all Teen Wolf in the gym for that one scene.
That was fucking hilarious.
All right, so final category, Best Peter Parker. Let's go to the Twitter first before we give our answers. Got a lot of Twitter feedback on this. We did a poll. Who's the best Peter Parker? Movies only. Apparently, a lot of people can't read because they took that to mean whoever the fuck they want. Tobey Maguire with 30% of the vote. Andrew Garfield with 5%. Tom Holland with an astounding 60%.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
I honestly couldn't believe that. I thought Tobey and Tom would be closer.
Yeah, me too.
And then
I was really surprised
I threw in
to see
Jake Johnson from Spider-Verse. He got 5%.
I can't believe he tied with Andrew Garfield. That's crazy.
Yeah, I thought that would. I'm going to chalk it up to a lot of people probably still haven't seen Spider-Verse or maybe didn't know that was him voicing it.
I think people just didn't know that was him voicing it.
So our True Crime podcast gives a shout out to No Love for Morgan Freeman, and they linked a YouTube video. The very first Spidey adventure from the Electric Company. I don't think that's a movie. Narrated by Morgan Freeman. There we go. Nope, didn't give him any. Colby Mack, our friend, at Colby Told Me.
Hey, Cole.
He says, who's the best Spider-Man? Garfield. And then I corrected him and said, we're looking for the best Peter Parker. And he said, I know. He's still going with Andrew Garfield. That's interesting. He's in the minority there.
Yeah. But that's okay. He's got good taste. So, you might be right about the whole best Spider-Man, though.
That's a tougher question, and why I didn't put it in there.
Very good call. Good call, sir.
Jessica T at Buffy Watcher 23, who's been great. A lot of interaction from her lately. Thank you, Jessica T. I don't have a good reason, so I don't know who she voted for, but she doesn't have a good reason for it, anyways.
Fair enough.
All right, you got to let us know who you voted for if you're going to be that vague. Dem Fancy Dinosaurs at Dem Fancy says Tobey Maguire was like the only Spider-Man where you've actually seen the struggle he has living in the crappy apartment and always late on the rent because he has to save people all the time. Andrew Garfield was some douchey skater boy, and Tom Holland has Daddy Warbucks to pay. And those all make Tobey the best Peter, the suffering Peter.
I don't know, man. I kind of disagree with that.
Yeah.
Because I saw that, and it's just like, when I was living it a couple of years later, it was just like, oh, man, this is really not fun. So it just kind of darkened that
I get it a little bit, but they also kind of gloss over it. Like, they show him struggling, but he doesn't actually struggle. Like, they show him struggling, and then he just goes out and kicks a bad guy's ass, and his struggle's over.
Well, I mean, I don't really give a shit about his struggling, like, in his everyday life, trying to pay bills and stuff. I'd rather see Peter Parker being smart.
Yeah, by like the second or third run of the comics, like once he's graduated high school, that stuff kind of goes away for a while anyways. He's in college, he's roommates with Harry, who's rich and like just doling out money to pay for rent and everything like that. So it's like that goes away for a long time because, yeah, it's a good human story, but it gets old really fast too.
Yeah. We get it. He's human.
Yeah. The Miscast Entertainment at Miscast Tweets, he says, Jake not getting enough love. I said, yeah, even Garfield is beating him, which at that time Garfield had 6% and Johnson only had 5%, but they evened out eventually. And then he said, I didn't dislike Garfield, but Jake was great. I agree.
Jake was pretty good.
Jake Johnson was a very good, flawed Spider-Man.
It took me a minute to get past his voice.
Yeah.
Just because I kept thinking about all the, let's be cops. Once I got past that, I was
not a good film.
No, it was a shit film.
Will the Real Horror Show please stand up at horrorshow_pod, says Neil Patrick Harris, which I believe is from one of the early 2000 cartoons. I want to say Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. Not sure, though. Definitely not a movie. So your vote doesn't count.
Disqualified.
The Testosterone Podcast at Testosterone PC. Interesting. Love Toby. Tough vote. But yeah, Holland is killing it. So I'm guessing he voted for Tom Holland there?
Could go either way. Let us know. Testosterone.
Testosterone.
Testosterone. Fuck me, right? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Me, my spouse, and a die, at and a die podcast. Gwyneth will always maintain that Toby. Gwyneth must be somebody from that podcast. I thought they were talking about Gwen Stacy and really giving her the proper name there.
That's it.
Gwyneth will always maintain that Toby is her Spider-Man because A, nostalgia, and B, he embodied that nerdy something quality that just fit the role so well. I, again, corrected Peter Parker, not Spider-Man, and she said, oop, that's our bad. She still maintains the same thing.
Fair enough.
I get it. They focused more on, in the Raimi movies, they focused on Peter Parker, being bullied and not felt like he was just this... He was this nerdy guy, but they didn't play up his scientific ability at all.
Yeah, his smarts. They didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, he got bullied, but they didn't play up
Flash
his
Thompson
genius.
bullied him, but they didn't show the other side of that. I guess they did a little bit in the conversations he had with Octavius in part 2, but by part 3, that was all gone.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a non-existent thing anymore.
And then Kate at Captain Hangry, or Capt_Hangry. I think Chris Pine should get an honorable mention for Spidey Bells. Definitely.
Yes.
Spidey Bells is a great song.
Great fucking song, man.
And then Erica Laurent at Bolly Hoodoo. I'm not going to comment on this because it makes me too sad. It's just a gift of Peter dusting in Infinity War. I'm happy about that. Still makes me cry.
Yeah. That was pretty sad.
So best Peter Parker, who you got? I feel like we're going to have the same answer here.
We're going to have the same fucking answer. It's Tom Holland, hands down.
Yep, it is.
Yep.
It is.
Yep. And that's it.
He feels like a teenager. For all the nerdy and bullying stuff they put Toby through, he felt like he was a 30-year-old in high school for
he looked like he was a fucking 30-year-old in high school, man. He looked like it was funny.
And so they put him at the science high school with Tom Holland. They put him at the science high school, so everybody's a nerd there. So it's you got these varying levels of nerdity there. It does a great job of making him feel in over his head as a high school student, as a teenager, and
Spider-Man.
Being Spider-Man and still trying to juggle being a teenager, that's the humanizing thing. It's not, he gets bullied. It's, well, shit, I want to have a girlfriend, or I want to just go to a dance, or I just want to go on a school trip, but I can't because I have this responsibility.
It's a freaking Spider-Man.
That Tobey Maguire doesn't ever get that. He gets in one fight at school, and then he never goes back to school again. The movies don't ever show. I'm sure he goes back to school. The movies don't ever show him in school again until in part 2 where he gives up being Spider-Man and they show him in class answering a question correctly. It's not about that he gets bullied. It's about how he handles what's going on in his real life versus what's going on in the life he wishes was his real life.
Yep. So, Tom Holland, you win.
Shout
out Tom Holland.
Way to go. Yeah, if you're listening, we got you, dude.
You're a bro.
All right, so we got a few extras before we get into the Far From Home talk with Eric. Any categories that we missed? The one I had was the best Aunt May.
Yes.
Who'd you pick?
I picked Aunt May from Homecoming, dude.
Really?
Yes.
Marissa Tomei.
Yeah, I really liked that they went younger and significantly more attractive. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, everybody's got a thing for this Aunt May. Tony Stark, Happy Hogan, everyone.
She's very flirtatious.
Yeah, she is. Marissa Tomei is really good at that too. I went with the Raimi trilogy just because I'm used to reading the comics, and I thought that captured the spirit of Aunt May best. She's really feeble, but she has like great emotional strength and can help Peter get through these things. Can kind of fight her own battles. You see it when when Doc Ock's holding her on the tower and she smacks him with the umbrella. Like
straight up G.
Yeah, she's not winning any fistfights, but she knows how to stand up for herself.
Yeah, she ain't no punk.
So sorry, Sally Field.
I liked that they, she's really old in the comics. I think that's accurate. But I really like the younger Aunt May. Not just because she's attractive, but I think she adds a lot of comedy.
She wears weird pants, though, man.
Dude, she looks like a wannabe.
Yeah, it's weird.
She looked like she went to Charlotte Rouge and was just like, hey, I want to look like a hippie. Hit me up. And they dressed her up in their interpretation of what a hippie is. And that's what we get on the big screen. But I really like her interactions with Peter and Happy and, Peter's friends.
Yeah. Did you have any categories that we missed? I have a few more, but I wanted to see if you had anything.
Nothing specific. I liked your extra categories.
All right. Best web slinging action?
Spider-Man 2.
Oh, really? I went with MCU. And for more on that, see the Far From Home stuff, because it's really great.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty dope, if I do say so myself.
It has a lot to do with Tom Holland and how much he's, dived into this, and he's, taking acrobatics classes and gymnastics classes. Like he is a really good athlete, which I don't think you could say about Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield. Like he's put in the work to be athletic enough to do a lot of this stuff. And there have been a lot of advancements in CGI from either of the other two series.
Yeah, he does a lot of crazy shit, but for Spider-Man, it was just seeing that really expansive web sling, like him zipping through traffic and, flying through that great type deal, on the bridge over the highway or whatever, over the main road. Like that is just so cool. And
well, that's always stuff that they could do. Yeah, kind of in comics, but like through the animated shows, they would do that. In video games and cutscenes, they would do a lot of that stuff. But you could never do it on the big screen just because it's so hard to make it look realistic. And I think they finally got there where they can. Yeah,
they did a good job. But now they're really, with Tom Holland's Peter, Spider-Man, he's really getting into the flipping and the flexibility and it looks natural for him instead of stiff like Tobey Maguire. Maguire looked like a fucking 2x4.
Yeah, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield both, they're clearly on wires being twisted around. This is, okay, Tom Holland's obviously on wires because he doesn't want to die, but he's doing the actions. He's not being forced in, the wires aren't forcing him where to go. He's doing it and just using the wires as a guide.
Yeah, being safe. So we got to keep Tom Holland around. He's a national treasure.
Keep Tom Holland great again.
Fair.
Is that not a thing? No?
We will
best
make it
ally.
so.
Best ally in a Spider-Man movie.
Older Spider-Man from Into the Spider-Verse. Or really all the Spider-Men.
All the Spider-Friends. Yeah.
Yes, Spider-Friends is a better word. His arachnid family. Those are the best allies. They were great. Jake Johnson did such a good job as the older Peter Parker who, kind of let Spider-Man consume him. And it's really cool to see him guide Miles Morales.
Into not making the same mistakes. Yeah. I went with Ned from the MCU. Peter's guy in the chair. You got to have it.
Ned's pretty dope.
Yeah, Ned's great. So this is a new one that I just added. This is when I was typing earlier. This is what I was typing. What one thing are you most disappointed that didn't pay off? That was set up. So this is probably either from the Raimi trilogy or the Amazing Spider-Man movies that was set up that didn't actually get a payoff.
It's when I think about it, and I sat there and I thought, nothing really came to mind. But the only thing that I don't know if they really had any call outs about it, but with the Green Goblin storyline and the Amazing Spider-Man, I really, really am disappointed that Hobgoblin didn't come about and that Rhino wasn't expanded further. Like, I really
want to see more Paul Giamatti Rhino.
Yeah, like it really pissed me off.
I love Paul
30
Giamatti.
seconds in the giant rhinoceros suit of armor.
A lot of people think that's stupid. I thought it was really cool.
Well, I mean, yeah, the tattooed up Russian dude
Yeah,
who's
I don't know how you make it real. Like you can't make the character Rhino realistic in any way close to his comics form unless you put him in a big mech suit. Like he
yeah.
can't just be this. He can't be the Rock running around in a gray suit with a horn on it.
Shit, that'd be
That
funny.
would be goofy. Nobody would like that.
No.
I liked this interpretation of it.
Yeah, it did a good job.
I think my biggest thing is that we didn't get the lizard in the Raimi trilogy because they kept like Connors was in there for number 2 and number 3, I believe.
Yep.
And like I liked that actor. I liked how he did Doc Connors. I wanted to see what Raimi did with the lizard because again, that's another one where you could kind of go in the direction of horror and kind of take it this race through the sewers. I liked what they did in Amazing Spider-Man with the lizard. I was really excited to see it pay off in the first set of movies while going through the first set of movies.
Yeah, I think he would have been a natural villain to add. I think if they would have kept it simple in 3 and just had Green Goblin and Lizard, that would have been cool.
Yeah. They were definitely working towards, like, you don't include Doc Connors if you're not working towards the lizard. So
Definitely. They just never got the chance. Poor guys.
And then this one's off of movies, but it's interesting to me. What are your best and worst Spider-Man video games? Or Spider-Man movie tie-in games?
These little Spider-Man video games.
Movie tie-in, yeah.
Well, that's just what I went with, is just Spider-Man games. Best one was PS4.
Okay.
That was a fantastic Spider-Man game. Loved it. Played the shit out of it. I haven't played it since I beat the game, but it was pretty awesome.
I recently did one of the DLC missions, the Black Cat one.
Did you?
Yeah, it was okay.
I love the combination of suits and the combat system, and it's just really fun. That was a really good interpretation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Worst is the Spider-Man Edge of Time on the Wii.
I never played it on Wii. I played it on PS3, I think, and I didn't like it.
I fucking hated it, mostly because it was on the Wii. I had no idea how to play that game, and it just did not work right for me. So I didn't like, because that was part of a series. It was that and Shattered Dimensions, and I think there was one more that all went together. And they took it, so for the collection.
Yeah, for the Raimi trilogy, they released games with each movie. And in Spider-Man 2 from the Raimi trilogy, that's when they got down the swing mechanics that still every Spider-Man game uses with the 2 triggers. And it was the first to do it, and they did it right, and they've never changed it since, which is great. The Spider-Man 3 game had all these quick time events, so it wasn't as good. And then it was the best thing that the Spider-Man 2 game did was it brought open world New York City, where you could just travel around New York City. And again, that's something that most of them have had since, except the Shattered Dimensions Edge of Time games. Those put you on a linear path for whatever reason. They had this kind of comic book stylized view, layout, I guess is what it would be called. And
super structured.
Like it just felt like a step backwards from the movie tie-in games.
Well, what's funny is those movie tie-in games, Spider-Man 2 was like the hallmark superhero video game.
It's still so good.
Oh yeah, super awesome. Webbing up your hands and whooping dudes' asses. Like that shit is so fun. I remember playing that like crazy when I was younger.
Yeah, and then the worst, because I went with movie tie-in, so my best was Spider-Man 2. The worst movie tie-in game was Amazing Spider-Man number 1.
Really? I never actually played it.
Oh, they are awful. Both 1 and 2 are just awful. I gave part 2 a little bit of a bump because they introduced Spider Carnage, which has always been one of my favorite things. It's the mechanics are bad. They got the swinging mechanics right, but the fighting mechanics are bad. The side missions are bad. The regular missions are bad. The voice acting is terrible. The animation's terrible. It's just like it looked like a PlayStation 2 game, and it was a PlayStation 4 game.
I'll have to check it out just for Spider Carnage, because I have the pop they came out with for Spider Carnage, but I never knew of him as a character before.
They do him in the '90s animated series. They the end of their they kind of do a Spider-Verse type storyline, and the end of it comes with Spider Carnage.
Man, I just do not remember that.
I think it's season 5.
Fucking slacking.
Yeah,
slacking.
see that you keep picking Batman the Animated Series for best cartoon, but that's obviously because you don't remember all the cool stuff from Spider-Man the Animated
I
Series, which
don't.
is way
I
better.
don't. I've been hitting the head way too many times. Thank you, football.
The last thing I want to point out on this discussion of Spider-Man movies is a special shout out for the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, because it is dope as hell.
Yeah, they have a ton of people on that
Contract
on that.
Soundtrack.
Yeah, soundtrack.
It is so good. I wore this CD out as much as you could wear a CD out when I was in high school. Like it, I still, if any of the songs from that soundtrack come on, I still listen to it. They have it playing in the background on the video game. Like it was absolutely amazing, and good job whoever put that soundtrack together.
Yeah, walking through the halls, someone's like, "Hey, Calvin, what you listening to?" The
Spider-Man 2 soundtrack, man.
Yeah, so dude. I mean, I would just be like, okay, cool.
Right, you got anything else on Spider-Man movies?
I don't have anything else on Spider-Man movies other than I'm so glad they're still doing them, and fuck it, reboot it 10 more times. Hit with as many as you can.
I'm okay with the reboots. Everybody was mad that they ended the Raimi trilogy for a reboot, and I'm like, I'm cool with it. Yeah, I don't care if I see Uncle Ben die 100 times.
I'll get 100 different Spider-Mans. I will love it.
And I'm really excited to see where Into the Spider-Verse goes next.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
We should get 2099 Spider-Man in there, as Miguel O'Hara got teased at the end of that one. So
I would love that, and I'd love the Clone Saga if they could incorporate that somehow. I really want.
Clone Saga is such a mess.
I do, but I love Scarlet Spider.
Yeah, Ben Reilly. Yeah.
So good. Scarlet Spider-Man is probably my favorite Spider-Man version of all time.
Why they're doing mine too. That costume is by far the best one. And I think that's kind of why they're doing Spider-Verse, is they can kind of do clones without doing clones. They can just bring them from a different dimension and say, okay, this is a Spider-Man from a different dimension.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that, rather than trying to get in the muckety-muck with clones and the Jackal and all that shit.
Yeah, I want Scarlet Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Scarlet Spider-Man, we're waiting for you. Stay tuned. In a couple of seconds, Eric's going to come on. We're going to be doing a full review of Spider-Man Far From Home. If you haven't seen it or Endgame, turn it off now. All right, let's talk Spider-Man Far From Home. We've got Eric, we've got Nick. The whole crew is here talking the latest Spider-Man movie. There will be spoilers for Far From Home and pretty much all of the MCU from here moving forward. So if you haven't seen either Endgame
I don't know why you're listening,
then you cut us off now. Really bad idea.
Let's get it started.
Let's do it.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's worked better when we were in the same room. We could see who was talking. All right, Eric, what were you going to say?
I actually didn't grow up the biggest Spider-Man fan. You know, I know Cal is. So I've kind of grown to...
Nick is too, and we now hate you.
Kind of grown to have appreciation for him and all that kind of stuff, especially since Civil War. And, like, I don't know, the Tom Holland one's just my favorite. I think it would just hit me at the right time, you know? So I got probably the most pure version of Peter Parker in high school and all that kind of stuff. So go way back to Homecoming and all that kind of stuff. So I was expecting big things, especially after Endgame, but I was looking to see how they'd transition away from Tony and his passing. But it was a very refreshing. I love the fact that Nick Fury was involved. Put a pin in that. Come back to it later.
Was he though?
That's what I meant by put a pin in that. Come back to it later. But you know, for the while, it seemed believable. You know, shooting a high school kid with a tranq dart definitely brings up Nick Fury. Like, so you know, I thought that maybe they'd push the Tony Stark dying on this movie, which, you know, in the previews it kind of seemed it might be down that direction. And I mentioned in our Endgame podcast that, you know, I really don't want to see that armor be worn by anyone ever again. You know, I really don't want to see throwback scenes or, you know, reimagining. I just want it to be done.
Yeah.
But the nice proper tributes, you know, the artwork, you know, obviously grateful world for saving it, you know, around and stuff that idolize Stark and the Iron Man persona. But I thought the perfect callback and the perfect kind of laying to bed this Peter Parker relationship with Tony wasn't really the glasses, the Edith system. Even in death, what was it? But even dead,
I'm the hero. Even dead, I'm the hero.
They got a good laugh.
Even dead, I'm the hero. Yeah, I laugh pretty good at that. But that whole when they're playing, going to London with Happy, and Happy just kind of sits back and looks at Peter, toying around with the suit machine, and the same way Tony would, and cool little callback to Iron Man 1 where he slips his arm inside that virtual gauntlet,
and it's super dope.
Feel for that. And it was just very, very well done. It wasn't over the top. It was just kind of like, well, he's not Tony Stark, but damn if he isn't going to come close, No,
and they didn't beat you over the head with, he's dead now. What are we going to do? Like they mentioned it when they needed to mention it. I don't know that I liked Mysterio's whole raison d'etre was because Tony spurned him over the barf system. I liked Mysterio.
I did like Mysterio. He was a great character, but I had beef with the whole I'm pissed.
I don't know that they needed to shoehorn Tony in there too.
Well, and then there's a lot of Iron Man references.
Yeah,
I thought
at some point,
if anything, probably push of the storyline was definitely very believable. And I think that sometimes Marvel takes those chances and be like, this is too much, but this is the best way it fits. So we'll go with this, but we won't overdo it on this end. When it comes to the memory of Tony Stark, we won't overdo it with making this a whole Tony Stark tribute movie, avenging, old stuff for me and all that kind of stuff. No, I thought it was, if anything, the Mysterio storyline maybe pushed it a little far. I was okay with it because I wasn't getting beat over the head with everything else. You know what I'm saying? And so
it's just at some point Spider-Man needs his own villains to be his villains, not, well, this guy was spurned by Tony Stark, so now Spider-Man has to fight. Like, Peter Parker and Spider-Man need his own internal reasons to fight, not, well, this guy stole something from Tony.
So I gotta get him.
Well, I don't know if they'll get there. Because, they're going to do Sinister Six. And it's very that both of these villains from these Spider-Man standalone films are going to be involved in that. I don't think Mysterio's dead. So I'm just saying.
I doubt
that you can't kill off Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't care. But my point is that, it's just, you're going to have these movies, but you're always going to have that, because as long as the universe stays interconnected the way it is, you're always going to have people going back to the Tony Stark era. You're always going to have people with these deep connections, because there's still so many storylines that have been touched that haven't been touched yet. And it makes sense, the storylines, because you can always call it back from the comics. You can always call it back from subtle, like they did when Obadiah Stane was yelling at the scientist who was happening to help Mysterio. They called it all the way back to Iron Man 1. Like, nobody thought about that guy after Obadiah Stane yelled at him. Nobody thought about that. Now here he is, 22 films later, and he's the man responsible for essentially identifying Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. Like,
let's not forget, you're talking about how great Jake Gyllenhaal is and how they're not going to let him go. He almost replaced Tobey Maguire in the first Spider-Man series.
Yeah.
He was going to be Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2, and did replace Vinny Chase in Aquaman 2. You can't ever forget that.
That would have been so weird to have Jake Gyllenhaal just pop in for that second movie.
Yeah, it would have been. That's why Aquaman 2 didn't do that great at the box office.
Yeah. I will say one thing.
Ari Gold knew what he was talking about.
I kind of wasn't even focused on the Iron Man stuff, like the callbacks to that mostly. I really felt the void of the no Stan Lee cameo. As the movie progressed, it was like, damn, I really haven't seen Stan Lee, and being really a creation of his and Steve Ditko, it sucks. Or was it Jack Kirby? I think it was Steve Ditko.
Yeah, it was Ditko. And it's especially hard with Spider-Man because that was always Stan Lee's favorite character.
Fuck yeah, man.
So to not see him show up, it's like, oh, well, shit.
Yeah.
That it's really the end of an era here. Overall, I thought the movie was good. It wasn't great. I liked Homecoming better.
I did too.
The MJ, I almost called her Mary Jane, but that's not her name. She's Michelle, MJ. Peter stuff I thought was really good, and it really captured what needed to be captured in this kind of love story that they're trying to build. The Ned and Betty stuff was funny, but then it wore on really, really quickly.
It was
Like,
weird, man. Well, it just
by the end of the movie, I was like, I don't give a shit about them
it
anymore.
removed Ned from the story for the most part. Like, he's just busy with this
Yeah.
girl, and like he's there, but he's not really there. Whereas in Homecoming,
I mean, but isn't that how it goes with high school girlfriends?
Yeah, sadly, ain't that the truth?
That's exactly right. I think I found myself in the theater saying, "I'm gonna break up with you this trip." You know that, right? Like it was just, but it was a plausible way to get Ned out of the main story, kind of get out of Peter's way. I mean, we've all been on trips with friends, you know, at school or whether it's mission trip related or something like that, and like you're kind of inseparable if you've got your best bros on that trip. You're kind of inseparable, so it would have been really hard for Ned to like not notice Peter sneaking out or not notice, you know, what it is that he's up to, you know, trying to duck and dodge this Spider-Man thing. Right. You know, so I thought it was a good plausible way to get Ned kind of not up Peter's ass all the time.
There's no chair for Ned to be in when they're on a school trip.
Right.
He can't be the guy in the chair when there's no chair. For me, the best part was Mysterio. The illusions that he trapped Peter in, the one really big one,
dude.
Where he originally killed Nick Fury, which I know he didn't kill him, but like that first one, like I wish we got more of that. That was so intense, and it reminded me of playing the old PlayStation Spider-Man games when he had to go against Mysterio, and like how it felt being trapped in these illusions that you had no idea how to get out of.
They were really, really well done, and I liked the.
And every time you thought Spider-Man got out of one, he was captured again.
I know, and it was the 7 layers of hell or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's just, and I like the way they used drones. Basically, I thought that was really fascinating, and it kind of melded with the scientific aspect they're trying to take with this. Like they're really harping on that he's super smart and he deals with super smart people and smart villains, etc. And you know. Quentin, as he's known, is a pretty smart cat, so I think that fits his character really, really well.
Well, and I kind of wondered how they would work in, because Quentin back in the comics, his background is in special effects and like being a stuntman, so I kind of thought, how are they going to work that into this bigger thing? Like all of this destruction is huge, like people are going to notice it, and I liked kind of how they changed that part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is, 2019, people aren't going to believe some shitty effects, if you know what I mean. Like back in the day, reading those comics, They were just really low grade, but they still I mean, it was mostly like poisons, I want to say, that he spiked Spider-Man with, which got him to hallucinate a little bit further.
It was either that or like mirrored illusions, things like that.
Yeah, but you can't drug a high school student in the movies anymore, especially not with Disney. So.
Yeah, that's frowned upon.
Yeah.
You also shouldn't drug high school students in real life.
No.
Yeah. Not even in the theater.
Yeah, not even in the movies, guys.
So let's talk about kind of the bigger things that came of this. We get a mid-credits reveal of Spider-Man is now basically a mass murderer, and also the world knows his name.
The lid off it. Blows the lid off.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Bringing back J.K. Simmons for J. Jonah Jameson is great, too.
Great move. Great move.
He's fantastic there.
I like that they did that.
Well, so I have a little bit of a problem with it. I don't know how Spider-Man can be public menace / actual literal murderer and have his identity known at the same time. Because those two things never go hand in hand, like in the comics or in cartoons, anything like that in the past. Because if his identity's known, Peter Parker's a really easy person to catch. He has a routine. He goes to school. He has an aunt. If you're the police, he's very easy to catch. Spider-Man is not, and he always gets away from the police, but like if Peter Parker's just sitting in class, the police can just come in and take him and arrest him because he's an actual terrorist if, everyone believes what Mysterio says. So it'll be interesting how they kind of play that off.
They've done well so far playing those twists off.
Right, yeah. I know.
I'm pretty sure, the actual Nick Fury will get it and figure things out for him, if not happy. So I don't think him and May are in any real trouble. I know that probably his friends are going to be pretty heavily interrogated. I guess I had to think in this particular storyline in this world. I mean, but I don't think that Peter is in. I think Peter, GTFO'd on everybody in that, including Jay, after that moment, and just made himself very scarce when he got May and got the got the heck out of town.
Yeah, I mean that's really your only option. You go find find Nick Fury, whoever you can to protect you until it boils over. What about J. Jonah Jameson with the InfoWars style video blogs?
Yeah, a lot of people did that. That was awesome.
Alex Jones.
The only thing better is I think in the Spider-Man PS4 game, J. Jonah Jameson has a podcast that like plays in the background as you're swinging around town. I think that's better, but I like this too.
This works. This works with his character really well.
And it's modern. You know, you're not trying to trying to get a new crowd to relate with newspapers. You know, selling
newspapers, or even just he's like a TV personality or something. Like he's got to be that over the top guy, the Alex Jones style.
Exactly.
Like otherwise, it's just like nobody would watch it if he's just like, oh, and I don't like Spider-Man. Yeah. Now the traffic.
And Spider-Man sucks. But yeah, I mean,
Spider-Man blocking traffic again.
Everyone knows. I think everyone knows who Alex Jones is for the most, or at least if maybe not by name, but they know that caricature of him. I mean, that is so easy to just display that he's kind of full of shit, and he's just, I don't know, a big pompous dick. It was funny to see that.
Just yelling all the time about things he thinks he knows.
But people get their way a lot doing that, man. I mean, you've heard of the Karens.
It is.
He's made millions of dollars yelling at mostly nothing. So yeah,
that's what most of the news is nowadays, guys.
I mean, maybe we should do that more. Maybe we should just yell about things, and then we'll get more listeners that way.
We should test this theory. Just coming soon, special episode, Patreon exclusive. Yell the whole time.
You should have done that on the airing of the Grievances podcast.
Oh, that would have worked.
Super loud about whatever it is you were pissed.
That would have worked. That's a good idea. All right, airing of the Grievances part 2. That's what we'll do.
Just belligerent.
I can't believe I'm not sitting in another meeting with these fucking people.
Dude, okay. So my mom listened to that Grievances podcast, and she was fucking dying. She was talking about this shit. She's like, I know what you mean about the meetings. And I mean, she's very prim and proper. She's like, I could just hear it in Calvin's voice. Like, he sounded like he was ready to explode. And it's okay. He did.
Shout out Nick's mom.
Yep. Shout out, Mom. Hi.
That's great.
Well, it was funny. One of our friends on Twitter, not on Facebook, Facebook is the devil. On Twitter, one of our friends pointed out that they were in a meeting that ran like 2 hours over the scheduled time, and then they had to reconvene 3 days later. I'm like, oh yeah, hey, I recognize
Deja
that.
fucking vu.
So back to actual Spider-Man things. We had a second end credit scene, which I did not see because I didn't think there would be 2.
I had to pee. I'll just tell the truth right there. I had to go.
I read about it. I know what happens. I get it. What are our thoughts there?
I actually did not even read it. What happened?
What'd you say, Eric?
I'm surprised you actually haven't even YouTube. I think it was out there. But
okay, I haven't tried on because I looked up what it was as soon as I left the theater, and I haven't tried since because I get it.
I don't know what that was about. I didn't think it was necessary, but I mean,
in credit scene.
Yeah, it's setting something up for later. I've been pretty clear about this. I don't want to see more Skrulls. I don't want to see Secret Invasion. It's very convoluted. And I think it'll be very hard to explain to casual moviegoers why the hell everything that's happened hasn't actually happened because they were replaced by these aliens that can steal your personification. And then, and for people who are comics fans, I don't think they'll be able to do, because it's so convoluted, they won't be able to do the comics storyline justice because they'll kind of have to dumb it down. So I don't know how they find that middle ground. I mean, the MCU's done a really good job of finding middle ground between this stuff in the past. I'm sure they'll have a way to figure it out, but I just don't know that I care about Skrulls and Secret Invasion right now.
Hear me out. 12 movies. Boom. That'll tell the whole story. It was just... It's such a hard...
but you have to see all of them.
Well, we've seen all 22 Marvel movies. I mean, it's not inconceivable.
Yeah,
we have, but
I never see Thanos. I don't know if everybody wants these freaking shape-shifting roles and everybody getting tricked into thinking who is who for 12 straight movies. It's kind of exhausting. It would be for me. But I don't want.
Is that person real? Are they not real? What's going to be?
I don't know.
trust
I think I would enjoy it.
For movie 6, I don't trust anything I've seen for 5 movies because I know in movie 8 is going to be a scroll and I don't fucking know anything.
Yeah, and how do we know the previous 22 movies haven't been infested with scrolls now?
We don't.
Maybe the whole Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they're all scrolls.
That's what made Secret Invasion so much fun. It was just like, holy shit, okay. And I mean, we could go into it knowing there's going to be scrolls, and it's not like it wouldn't still be fun. Like, Disney and Marvel would come up with a good way to do it to where you'd still have a good time. It'd still be a fun little mystery to go on.
The MCU hasn't let me down. I doubt they will. I'm not excited for it. Maybe once it gets going, I will be, but at this point, I'm not.
I'm going to punch Kevin Feige in the face if I find out Tony Stark is a Skrull and therefore Morgan is a Skrull. If I find out in about 5 years that Tony Stark was a Skrull.
Well, then they can bring him back.
No, I'm going to punch him in the freaking forehead.
Tony Stark didn't die. The Skrull that was pretending to be Tony Stark died. He's off on the fucking moon somewhere. He'll be back. Don't worry.
Now we owe the W to a Skrull. I don't like it either.
That's a good scroll then.
That's a good scroll. It's not a character moment for my guy.
Yeah.
This is the problem with bringing Skrulls in so deep. Like, having them in Captain Marvel and having them kind of close that loop in Captain Marvel, that's fine. But when you start peppering him everywhere else, you're going to run into these kind of problems.
People are going to get...
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see.
I mean, there's so many good storylines, but they'll be extremely hard to adapt. So I don't really know where you go from here exactly.
Right. But
that's the end of Phase 3, so we're going to see... I don't even know what comes next.
I would love to see a House of M situation with the X-Men, and I don't know if they could incorporate that, but that would be super cool.
Yeah, talk about convoluted.
Well, I mean, they're all convoluted. There's 58 crossovers to 3 different titles, and in the end, you got 400 comic books telling one singular story. That shit is always convoluted.
Wow.
I guess the next thing that we'll see are the Disney Plus shows.
Oh, yeah, man. I totally forgot.
Is that true?
I think so.
Or do we have a movie slated before November of 2019?
I don't think so, man.
No, I don't think so either.
So, all right. We'll have to see what happens in those, which will probably be alternate realities anyways, because most of those characters don't exist.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens there. Spider-Man Far From Home, final thoughts. Nick, you go first.
I enjoyed it. They had a lot of little things that were really, really neat. Like, I liked Happy and Aunt May's relationship. I thought that was funny. I got a lot more, like, genuine good laughs from this movie, from, little quips and character interactions than I did from Homecoming. Like, Homecoming was more like, kind of heartwarming, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, this had its moments, and like you said, the relationship between MJ and Peter was great. I thought the web slinging and, like, the fighting style Peter displayed was way better than in Homecoming. It was really fun to see him, really start bouncing around like the acrobat.
Yeah.
This little...
Well, it helped that his enemy was, like, all these drones that he had to kind of dodge and move, and uses Peter Tingle to get around.
The Peter Tingle, yeah. So, I mean, that was hilarious, and so, I don't know, I'm really conflicted. Like, I think overall I like Homecoming better, but I liked aspects of Far From Home way better than Homecoming. I thought Mysterio was great. It's just, there was some points when it kind of dragged, where I wasn't super interested.
So during Mysterio's villain mustache twirling speech, where he's in the bar after he just got Edith, he started talking about how he created Barf and Tony Stark hung him out to dry. I left, went to the bathroom, came back, and he was still doing his speech. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I probably missed that, most of that speech. And I came back and, like, he's still going. So, and that's kind of what you're talking about. They had these moments like, all right, this should have ended 2 minutes ago, and it's still going for no reason. Like, it's not necessary.
It felt a little longer than it should have been, but I enjoyed the movie overall.
I'm pretty much right with you. I liked Homecoming better, but there was better pieces of this. The MJ Peter stuff was better. Mysterio was better than Vulture. But other than that, I don't know. Like you said, it was a little draggy.
I think I disagree. I think Michael Keaton was an amazing villain. That car thing.
I didn't say he's not amazing.
Well, what do you mean
things can both be amazing.
Well, what do you mean?
Okay.
Is he just a better
Michael Keaton as Vulture is an 8, and Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio is a 9. Like,
fair enough.
Nah.
There's still levels to better.
Nah.
Eric, what do you got? Final thoughts.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'll never complain about a movie going a little bit too long because I'm not ever going to bitch about getting some Marvel content. But it did go in a few spots where it felt a little too clunky, a little too teen-ish. So I thought, some parts were a little unnecessary. But full disclosure, I'm not really a big Jake Gyllenhaal fan. But
What?
Whoa.
All right, we're hanging up on you now.
He earned every bit of the respect he deserves for this because he was a fantastic villain, and he
I'm a
was
huge Jake
fantastic.
Gyllenhaal fan.
Yeah,
He was a fantastic ally at first. It felt like he's really here to save the fuck. But and he's totally capable of pulling off ruse, as an actor, and it's like there was no challenge for him in playing this role the right way, the way it should have been played. I think Marvel and both, they deserve a lot of credit for the way that character turned.
That's a really good point.
I think that he transitions so well, and he does everything. The old top dramatic where he's going out his whole plan in front of his people at the bar after Peter leaves. After he gets the glasses, he's like over the top eccentric. But he can be like that strapping Captain America type, looking the young in the eye and being the leader that he needs, and then he can just sit there and be just devilish as a villain. And I thought that was fantastic.
Well, that's something he does really well in this, is he senses that Peter Parker is vulnerable in a way that only teenagers can be vulnerable in. He needs someone to look up to. He knows he has no parents. He knows it's only his aunt looking after him. And Tony was that father figure, and he knows that that's what Peter's looking for now. Yeah. And he swoops in and takes advantage of that to gain Edith and continue on his mustache-twirling plan.
All I know is that I'm not going to be so abject to a Gyllenhaal film from here on out. You guys have my word.
Dude, have you seen Nightcrawler?
You should go back and watch some other Gyllenhaal films because they're all fantastic. Dark, well, maybe not all of them.
Nightcrawler.
And Blue Jarhead was terrible. I hated that movie.
Jarhead wasn't very good.
No, anyway.
End of Watch, really good.
I love that.
End of Watch
is so good.
And I think we've talked about this. I think we've all talked about, when we knew Gyllenhaal was coming up when we talked the Endgame. I think we kind of went around.
Prince of Persia?
Never seen it.
Don't do that. Don't see it.
It's not good. Yeah, don't see it.
No, you can fully admit in public that you saw that movie nowadays. But as far as the whole movie is concerned, I didn't have a whole lot of beat. The mid-credit scene threw me for a loop. I wasn't surprised to see the end mid-credit scene really threw me for a loop. That was really well done with all things considered. Actually, him swinging. For the first time, you see Tom Holland swinging from building to building through Manhattan, just like the other two Spidey would do.
Well, that was CGI. He wasn't really swinging on
don't be
webs.
Kalvin, okay, right now. Okay? Freaking literal.
Tom Holland was not actually swinging above the city.
He might have been. I don't know.
That's true.
Don't Drax me here in sarcasm here.
Nothing goes over my head.
But
I will catch it.
But no, it was just for that whole mid-credit scene where he's swinging through the amazing CGI and artwork. Really cool exchange between him and MJ. And also, just J. Jonah Jameson showing up and then the whole monkey wrench at the end with his identity getting blown off. Like, it was the perfect way to tie a bow on it. I'm really pumped to see this character again. I'm really pumped to see what happens again in the future. And that was a perfect little change of palette. The heaviness that was Endgame to close out these three was something that's, enjoyable and entertaining and fun. So I thought it was great. I think it had like 8.5 in my opinion on a scale of 1 to 10.
I think I gave it like a 7.5.
Yeah, I saw. Didn't Colby shout out?
Colby gave it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I saw that, man. I was really nervous going in once I saw it. I was like, damn, Colby.
Well, I had seen it before he saw it, luckily. He had some of the same problems we did. I listened to the podcast he did on it. He had most of the same problems we did. He's a little harsher on things than we are because he's quote unquote a film critic. So But yeah, it's hard at this point to do something truly innovative in the MCU. And with Mysterio, they did. I think they could have done more. I think if they would have made it this kind of almost paranormal thriller where the whole movie Peter doesn't know what's real and what's fake, and Mysterio's just kind of stalking him with this technology, that could have been a cool movie.
Oh,
but I also liked everything in this movie.
Well, I mean, if he haunted him with like visions of Uncle Ben or some shit like that, like that'd be a super cool way to at least get a taste of Uncle Ben and like what helped shape Spider-Man. That would have been dope.
Just with that, or like have these things of MJ, getting injured in his arms or dying in his arms, things like that he thinks is happening, but it's really not. And like, if you could have turned the whole movie into a psychological thriller that way, I think you would have had a better movie. But at the same time, this was a good movie. I'll watch it again.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I'm always there for Spider-Man content. So
there's 1,000 ways you could have gone with this film as far as, what done with mysterious characters. You could have made this a horror and it would have been freaking cool as hell. But the bottom line is you got to put butts in seats, and you got to put kids and their parents butts in seats. At least some. I think the most risque joke is Peter Tink, and I was just like, they say it all the time, I'll lose my shit because it's just so gross.
Yeah. They overdid that one a little too much too.
Yeah. For a teenager to be like, oh hey, it's your Peter Tinkle. Don't say that to me. Don't say that to me. So anyway, other than that, like I can't have many complaints about the movie, if any, and if I do, there doesn't really matter in the scheme of things. I enjoyed the hell out of this film.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you check out myself and Nick on Twitter. That's at APA something at alone_podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And check out our website at podcastaboutsomething.com. We also have a Facebook fan page. Don't expect much there. Not a lot's going to happen. I pretty much just set it up so we can run Facebook ads. But you can find it by searching a podcast about something on Facebook if you want to follow us there. If we get some good feedback on it, then maybe I'll do more on it. But that's pretty much it for today. Thank you, as always, to those cats for providing all the music for a podcast about something. Stay classy.